Hello everyone and happy Friday. Please excuse the lighting that I know is going to change eventually. The sun is setting and I'm relying on my ring light, and my ring light, I have a difficult time getting the proper settings with it and my camera, so right now I already don't like my lighting, so please forgive the lighting. I'm going to be ranking the Studio Choom Artist of the Month. Basically, Studio Choom chooses a member of a group or a K-pop soloist, and they give them the opportunity to have a choreography made for them and perform the choreography that month. There are 11. And it is completely my opinion. I'm not a choreographer. I know nothing about dancing. I know nothing about performing. I know zero. I at first was watching the behind the scene things for each individual performance just to kind of understand what the artist and the choreographer were wanting to show. But other than a few things here and there for each of them, I didn't find it too significant to my overall rating and my opinion of the performance. So I just kind of stopped watching it after about 5 of them. By ranking a artist 11th place and or them having 4 out of 10, it does not mean that I dislike the artist. I do not dislike any of these artists. I actually really like all of these artists. I don't mean any harm or hate towards any of these artists and their groups. It's all for fun. All for fun. So number 11, I honestly feel really bad for doing this because 11th place is Yuno, who is a member, one of the members of TVXQ, and is also a soloist. I was expecting a lot for him, I guess, going in knowing that he is a first-gen artist and that he's a very good dancer and just performer in general. I had very high expectations. Maybe my expectations were just too high, but I didn't enjoy this performance. I was, as I put it in my notes, I was incredibly underwhelmed. I wanted to love it. This may have to do something with the song choice. I have no hate against Billie Eilish, but when an artist performs a performance with a Billie Eilish song, they usually heavily focus on expressions and just kind of odd quirkiness, and I'm not the biggest fan of that. I don't mind having a K-pop artist having amazing expressions. I actually really love that. While he did not heavily focus on necessarily his expressions, he focused on doing kind of like weird movements, because Billie Eilish's songs are not necessarily weird, but they are, if you've heard one of her songs, I think you kind of get what I'm coming from, but they're just very different from like your normal music. But he was doing that, just these a little bit awkward movements to me, which again, I know go with the mood of her songs, but I just particularly didn't like how it was done in his case. The performance didn't need to blow my mind and like be extremely difficult or anything like that, but I just had high expectations for him and I was very much let down, unfortunately. In the end, I ended up giving this a 5 out of 10. Moving on to number 10, I feel like I'm gonna get a lot of side eyes. Number 10 is Miss Soojin from Idol. I remember when this came out, when I watched it, and I was just, my initial thought was, is that it? I think the thing with Soojin's that I dislike is similar to Yuno's, and honestly a few others. I expected much more from her. And she's a wonderful, charismatic performer. She knows how to play with the camera. She knows how to work her eyes. She is a very sexy performer, and she showed that through this performance. But it just felt like I've seen this before, sort of thing. Her behind the scenes was one of the ones that I watched, and even she and the choreographer mentioned that this was something that's similar to what she has done in the past. So my critique there, I think, is pretty fair. She didn't do anything different that we haven't seen. She did a sexy, charismatic performance. I wanted something different from her. It didn't have to not be sexy. I was actually thinking when it first started, when I first initially watched this video years ago, that I was going to be a cha-cha of sorts, that it was going to be a Latin inspired dance, or just like a sexy samba or something like that because of her outfit. She could pull that off, and she could do that amazing. So a note I say here, I think that kind of sums up my feelings for it, is that she's extremely charismatic and holds your attention throughout the entire performance, but I want to be drawn in by her dancing, not her charismatic, sexy image. I ended up giving this a 6 out of 10. Coming in at number 9 is Miss Ryujin from ITZY. I didn't know what to expect from her, but my first note was, why so many Billie Eilish songs? Because so many of these artists chose one of Billie Eilish's songs. Again, I don't hate Billie Eilish, but like I said earlier, they always stick to doing lots of expressions or weird movements or just like a quirkiness in the performance, and I don't generally like that. This is something that I noticed with each individual ITZY member. There were 3 members from ITZY who were chosen as Artist of the Month, which I think is insane, like wow. But something I noticed with all 3 of them, they have huge sections of the choreography that is repeated twice, and it's usually generally the chorus portion of the song that they're dancing to. I think when you are performing like their own song and stuff, when they have like the same choreo for the chorus, that's fine. The chorus is supposed to be a catchy movement, and that's the hook. The hook is supposed to stay the same. When I'm watching a performance video, I don't want that. The chorus takes around 15, maybe 20 seconds. So that's 40 seconds of a chorus for a 2-minute, maybe less, performance video. So it can feel very repetitive. Her performance really focused on a theatrical element of just like being very, very, very playful. She interacts with her backup dancers a lot. I felt like the theatrical elements overshadowed the choreo. In some situations, I don't mind that, but I just didn't like the way it was executed for her, unfortunately. I did end up giving this a 6 out of 10 overall. And then coming in at number 8 is Miss Yeji. Similar with the previous performance, the choreography was repeated twice in the chorus, and again, I just don't like it. I've already explained why I don't like it. The initial first half of this performance was fantastic. I love dancing with her on the chair and stuff and on the floor. I really loved that. I think she was just extremely powerful during that. But the second it went to the second half of this performance, she kind of lost me. I don't particularly know why. Yeji really knows how to get your eyes on her. She has for one, she has very striking features with her eyes. She has beautiful cat eyes. She knows how to make the perfect expressions, and I think that was really showcased here. I did end up giving this performance a 7 out of 10, so not necessarily a bad performance. Coming in at number 7, I was not expecting to put him here. The 4th generation IT boy, Mr. Yeonjun from TXT. Yeonjun, I love him so much. I don't stand TXT, but I love all the members very, very much. Expecting him honestly to probably be like top 3. He's not. But the reasoning is because he does a whole lot of, oh my goodness, he does a whole lot of setting up during this performance. Because these videos, the Artist of the Month, is supposed to be performance based, I find it to be just a little odd for some of them to have such long setups, like getting into character or like trying to create a story, which it's nice to create a story and stuff and like set up the scene. I think they only really need 5 to 10 seconds to create the mood to get the performance going. I don't think they need to do it multiple times, for one, throughout the performance, and then I don't think they need a 30-second setup to set up the performance. It just kind of makes me a little bored when they take too long to set up the scene. So 35 seconds for his initial first setup. His transition to the next half was how long? Was 22 seconds. 35 plus 22 is around 50 some odd seconds. I can't do math. I was in special ed math. Don't judge me. But it was around at least close to a minute or a little over a minute long of him setting up. And that was a bit extreme considering how much time he did for the actual performance. This is similar with Yeji. I didn't like any of the first half of his performance. Not that it was bad, but it was hard to keep my attention. I honestly think it has to do with the transition. It's just hard to get into the first half when it was such a long setup, and then you kind of start watching the performance, and then he stops and then does another 22-second transition. But it's saved by the second half, which I honestly think is phenomenal. One of the moves that he does, I think I would have broken my spine. He's at 7th place, and I ended up giving him a 7 out of 10. Now for number 6, one of my biases. So I was not expecting him to be number 6. I was expecting him to be number 1, to be honest with you, because he's my bias. Number 6 is Hyunjin. I still don't know how to explain why. I was just kind of with his performance. I don't know what it was, but any time he was dancing with the backup dancers, I just had a hard time staying focused. I don't think it was necessarily the backup dancers. And again, he's my bias, so I don't quite understand why. I think it also has to do with, and I can't believe I'm saying this because Studio Chooms does so well with the camera angles and stuff. But I did not like how this one was shot whatsoever. I don't know if Hyunjin had a say in that, and if he did, I'm sorry. I just felt like there were so many close-ups of him, just head to waist. I felt like I didn't see the entirety of the dance the majority of the time. Just quick zoom-ins of him, and again, I just felt like that was really distracting from the initial performance. And he had his solo part. Oh my goodness, I loved it, and it's exactly a great representation of why I love his dancing. My jaw was just... I ended up giving this a 7 out of 10. Coming in at number 5, we're getting into our top 5, is Miss Chaeyoung from ITZY. I really adored this dance, and I think it suits her very, very well. Camera angles, I was just saying how much I hated the camera angles, but the camera angles for her really highlighted the choreography. The choreography would not look as good as it does without the camera angles. The above shots of her were just gorgeous, and the lighting and her outfit and just her in general, she's beautiful. It was just gorgeous. Everything was so pretty. The way she expressed emotions with her dancing was fantastic. However, that does bring me to, I don't understand if she completely understood if she was supposed to be giving off a sexy vibe or a sad vibe with her facial expressions. Because sometimes she would give a sexy kind of expression, other times it would look like she was about to cry. And which I felt like the emotional about to cry expressions fit the song a little bit more. But it's not a huge critique that I have. It's not a huge problem with the performance, but that is something that I did notice. Like I said, with the other two members, the choreo was repeated twice in the chorus. I'm sorry, I don't like that when that happens. In the end, I ended up giving this a 7.8 out of 10. I think she did really, really well. Number 4 is Miss Shinbi from G-Friend and now VV's. I actually did not like this performance after my first initial watch. I thought it was incredibly boring, but then I watched it again and I just asked myself, what was I thinking? This is amazing. This is so fun. This performance was so energetic. I think the reason why I may not have liked it at first was because I don't like the song. You can see her experience here. She knows how to own the camera. She has backup dancers. They dance great. But all your attention is on her. She does it so easily. It's not a like, pay attention to me kind of situation. It's just like, I know you're gonna pay attention to me, so I'm just gonna do my thing. And I love that about her. This was just a fun performance and I really loved it. She also had no transitions. Coming at number 3 is Juyeon from The Boys. He was one of the ones that chose a Billie Eilish song, but it fit this time. I think it was executed the best with him is what I mean. He did a very creepy, pretty dance. I don't know how to explain it. I knew how Juyeon danced going into this, but this was not what I was expecting from him at all. I was expecting something very hard-hitting. Not something that kind of like focuses on very restrained movements, I guess is the only way I know how to say it. It seems as almost during his performance that he is an animal that has just been set free. But yeah, this was not what I was expecting from him at all, but it was a very, very pleasant surprise and I really, really loved it. He is number 3, obviously, in the ranking, and I ended up giving him a 9 out of 10. Now this kind of gives away who the first place is, but number 2 is Miss Chaeyeon, who is now a soloist, but at this time of the performance was a member of IZ*ONE. Chaeyeon was the first artist of the month, and she also chose not to have any backup dancers, which you go girly. She also doesn't need backup dancers at all, which is why I love her performance so much. She is so powerful. I did follow her during Produce 48, and she was one of my picks. So I love her dancing very, very much. She threw in some elegant surprises into this, which I was not expecting from her, but also keeping what she's sort of known for. Only thing I have to say is that there are a few things, and this is a critique I've always had for her. She doesn't change her expressions too often. She usually always has like this face where she's just kind of focused on the camera. Also a moment where she is kind of on the floor and her hair is in her face. Her hair is a dancer of its own. They do multiple shots of this, so I don't understand why they couldn't have shot that one more time to where her hair wasn't in her face for like 10 seconds. It was kind of awkward. I ended up giving her performance a 9 out of 10. We all know who number 1 is, but number 1 is obviously Wooyoung from ATEEZ. I have loved this performance since it was dropped. I have nothing that I dislike about this performance, to be honest with you. I could gush about it all day, every day. He's just so playful when he performs. And I really loved BB Trippin, who is the backup dancers for him. I don't find any part boring whatsoever. I find it all captivating. I love the jazziness in some portions of the choreography. I don't know what you call it, but he does like this little kick in midair and it looks really, really pretty. The overall picture of this performance I just felt was the best out of all the Artist of the Month performances. Ended up giving him a 10 out of 10. That is the end of this video. I hope it was entertaining in some sort of way. Let me know your favorite Artist of the Month. If you guys enjoyed, hope you guys have a lovely day, and I will see you next Friday.